Hello, welcome to the Introduction to Research and Development overview presented by ESS BIZTOOLS. I'm Peter Towers, Managing Director of ESS BIZTOOLS. Research and development can be the start of the innovation journey. It's an exciting time for many SME clients because they can receive some government assistance via the research and development tax rebate to undertake activities that might turn out to be very valuable for their business. Thousands of SMEs undertake research and development activities each year. And it's worth remembering that research and development is legislated as part of the Income Tax Act. The Introduction to Research and Development product package equips accountants and bookkeepers to have answers to the questions that your client might ask you. And then we follow on with the further questions that could be asked when we look at the total package of research and development. What we're talking about is the research and development package, which is part of the advanced package within the ESS BIZTOOLS product package. And this enables an accountant to be able to deliver a complete professional advisory services to assist your clients to get started on the innovation journey. We're going to look at the flow chart on research and development activities and indicate how you could use that to have a discussion with the client. The client might ask you a question about research and development, and you would be able to answer them on that question. This package has been discounted as part of our BizAid by ESS BIZTOOLS. We're obviously aware of the problems that many SMEs are having in Australia. They need assistance from accountants who can guide them on their process. And not every client's going to be looking for research and development. We know that, but a significant number are, and more could be interested. So we've discounted the fees to assist accountants to get started, to be able to offer these services. And our estimate is that you could generate fees of between $300 and $1,000 per client from giving advice on research and development. And those fees could grow to substantially higher amounts if your client gets underway on the research and development and then the innovation journey, because they will then need business plans, predictive accounting reports, budgets, cash flows, projected balance sheets. Potentially might need to raise funds, raise capital as an early stage innovation company or a crowdsourced funding equity raising company. So it opens some tremendous opportunities that you could really work with your client to grow their activities. And in the Black Friday promotion, which we currently have running, there's a special offer. We have discounted this product by 50%. So for $150 plus GST, $165, you will get 12 months 24/7 access. And you can use the product for as many clients as you wish. I hope that's got you interested. And what we now want to do is to take you to our website, and I will show you various components of the program. So on our screen, we've got the members homepage for ESS BIZTOOLS. ESS BIZTOOLS has got 4 packages. It starts with the advisory intro package, where we have the R&D introduction. In the starters package, we've also got the R&D introduction. And then we have the advanced package, which includes both the introduction and also the full research and development program. And that's what I'm going to show you now. And the financial forecasting package is the package that includes everything within ESS BizTools, and it obviously includes the full research and development package. But today we're looking primarily as it relates to the advanced package. So I'm going to bring up that content. This is the content within the advanced package. And you'll see here that we've got research and development. So we're going to get the content. So within ESS BizTools, you then click on download the content. There's a procedure control form, which we have in all of the ESS BizTools product packages. And I might just show you that. So this just summarizes everything that has to be undertaken. Within the procedure control form for research and development is now there for you to look at. We've got 46 of these BAS forms, we call them. They're templates of forms that cover a whole range of information. I'd be very surprised if you've got any one client that needs 46 of these forms. And you could probably undertake research and development work for 10 clients a year for 10 years and not use them all, but they're there in case you need them. And they're referred to, and you would click onto them to bring them up. There's 13 flowcharts in the system, and there are 13 separate papers of various commentary on different segments of the research and development process. Vision for the quotation and proposal. We've got that in every package to assist you with preparing quotations. If you want to use it, you can obviously use your own if you wish. So that guideline is there to show you how to implement the package. So I'm just going to go back now to our main area here, and just to give you an idea. And the first thing I think we should go to is the flowcharts. Trouble with the computer there. I'm just going to go back to the main product again and bring it back up. It's a bit easier. Now, within the flow chart, the first one I want to show you is planning a research and development project. So that flow chart is now on the screen. You could obviously badge this. You could hand this on to a client. You'd badge it with your firm name. And this is an example for you to show your client how you start the process. Someone comes up with an idea. And you'll see we got references, and they're the papers and the BAS forms that relate to that segment of what we're talking about. We could then look at what happens. Someone with an idea goes and talks to their boss, and they think it's worthwhile, so they create a small project. They normally have a small team. Our suggestion would be you'd suggest to your clients they allocate a reference number for that. There's some preliminary investigations. We've got a section of the paper which talks about the eligibility, and I'll show you that paper in a moment. We discuss what systematic progression of work means. It means there needs to be a specific program of how you're going to do the work. The prior art search, which there's an example in 5505 to explain how that's approached. And we look at the documentation of prior art, and we'll have a look at that shortly. And we need to list the core activities that are going to be undertaken in the process, because there has to be a core activity in each research and development project. And we need to be able to produce new knowledge. And that is very important, that it's not knowledge that's already known or should be known. Now, that does create a few questions, but we can only look at that. We need to have a hypothesis. What is your client trying to prove or disprove? They might recruit some competent professionals, get some advice from other experts. Need evidence of your purpose. You see a key form in all this is BAS 5514. I'm going to show you that shortly. And I think it's a good idea for your client to prepare a research and development plan, and we have a sample of that in 5507 to show you what is meant by that. For small companies, there's not a requirement to produce the R&D plan, but for larger companies there is. I understand in the advisory committee for all this was really split down the middle as to whether the planning for R&D should include the R&D plan. I think it's a good idea, so we encourage people to do that. And I think it's a good idea to have a budget, and then the proposal needs to be submitted to the board of directors. Now, it might only be a one-person board of directors, of course, but it needs to go to that person, because the tax office is looking for this concept to be formally approved, because that's what happens in larger businesses. And unfortunately for SMEs, a lot of the thinking, the planning by the government on research and development is in line with their understanding of what would happen in a larger company and in a university, which are the two areas that traditionally undertook research and development. Well, that's what some of the government bureaucrats thought. But of course, a lot of research and development these days is undertaken by SMEs. So I'm just going to go back, and we will go back and find some of those papers for you to have a look at. And my apologies, the computer system is taking a little bit of time just to react to some of these things. So the first thing I wanted to show you was some of these forms. So one of the ones that got a mention a fair bit was 5514. and it's now on the screen. You would badge it. And this is looking at the systematic progression of work. So let's just go through and look at this. It is asking for the prior art search. It's important that your client understands that they have to take reasonable steps to find out whether someone else somewhere in the world has already patented this concept. Because if that's the case, the Australian government's not going to offer income tax benefits through an R&D rebate to people to undertake the same process in Australia. So what material has been identified? How do you undertake prior art searches from the company's own point of view? That could be by having someone spend a fair bit of time on the internet, going through and trying to find information as to whether someone else has already identified that and done some work on it and patented it. But it's important that the records are kept. So if the keyword words have been inserted into the computer and it draws a blank when it's worded in a number of different ways, encourage your client to print that page off, make sure the date's on it, sign it, and file it. Because it might be 4 years' time before the tax office or Oz Industry, the other government department involved in this R&D process, asks for the evidence to be produced as to what research was done relating to prior art search. And you need to have that information because someone else a year later may well have patented this process somewhere in the world. But as long as your client has the documentation to prove that on a set time, about a year earlier, they made all the searches and couldn't find anyone, well, that should mean that they have not got any problems with the tax office. The core activity must be summarised. So we're suggesting that this key documentation is shown on this form so that you've got it recorded to be able to be made available to Oz Industry and the tax office. What was the significant reasons for planning to undertake the activity? Was it for the generation of new knowledge? That answer has to be yes. And what was the new knowledge intended to be produced? And you can make some comments, or your client could, as to how they're going to go about that. And what was the hypothesis? Hypothesis needs to be a positive statement of a belief that experimentation sets out to prove or disprove. And there's more details on that in that paper, 052010, item 8. So what was the hypothesis? And there can be more than one hypothesis. It could be a group of hypotheses. And it needs to describe technical or scientific ideas that can be tested through a systematic progression of work. Which competent professionals were approached. They could be universities, they could be consultants, they could be very experienced tradesmen or other professions. So who was the person? What was their qualifications? And what other experts was this discussions with? So the name of the expert, the organisation, what was the results of this research? Could the outcome be known in advance? You need to be able to sign off that it couldn't be known. So your client needs to make sure that it wasn't that obvious that it would be rejected by the tax office or Oz Industries as soon as they saw it. Now, this is getting into grey area, I will admit, and you need to make sure that your client understands this. And do you have any other documentation which prove evidence of what your purpose was? So then we have a checklist of what needs to be undertaken. So these forms have been prepared to enable your client to have the documentation, because Initially, there's no application submitted for R&D. You don't have to get approval before you start. The only thing you've got to apply for in advance is for overseas work, and that is very difficult to get. So your client goes ahead with all this. We need to make sure that they have prepared documentation to help them overcome any issues that might come out of that process. We also talked about planning a research and development document when we were doing that run through a moment ago. Reference material referred to. So what is the idea? What's the objectives of the project? You've given it a project number. Who was on the original small team? This can be very important, especially if there's litigation or legal matters that emerge out of all this, because this project that your client has started working on could end up being very valuable. And there could be other people who claim that they are part of the ownership of this particular project. So you need to make sure your client understands this. They need a full list of who was involved, who was this original small team. If they're team members, they're employees of the company, then unless their category is very obscure, like could be, say, a casual cleaner, and that person's been incorporated within the small team for a research and development project, what does the employment agreement for the casual cleaner say? What's the job description? And if there's any area that would indicate that it is definitely not that person's role to be working on a research and development project, it would be sound advice to that client to say, well, you need a separate employment agreement if you're going to have this person working on a research and development project. Because if it turns out to be very worthwhile, then this particular casual employee may have a claim of part ownership of the research. So there's some technical legal issues that need to be considered, and they need to be raised fairly early in this process. Because if this person starts working on the project and subsequently decides they're lodging a claim, it could be rather difficult. Now, most definitely, if the people who are in the small team are not employees, they should all be signing confidentiality agreements and assignment of intellectual property, unless a different deal is entered into with them. And in that case, it should be documented by a competent lawyer who has an understanding of the intricacies of these types of agreements. And that would then specify what that person's share of the overall project was going to be. Who's the project leader? What prior art searches were undertaken? What was the hypothesis and number of hypotheses determined? What new knowledge is going to be reproduced, and so on. So that's the summary of that material. I want to bring up now the paper, Planning a Research and Development Project. This is paper 052010, which was also mentioned. You see there's a lot of material here. So this is is primarily the paper that summarises what was in that flowchart. You see it's 15, 16 pages. So this summarises the introduction and is linked to the forms that we have discussed. Starts with an idea, the project, the small team, preliminary investigations, prior art search. So there's documentation there about the prior art searches. The research and development manager, which I think is very desirable that someone within the leadership team is given the responsibility and been in charge of this project. There's more comments on the hypothesis. So the hypothesis statement needs to be recorded in writing and then by experiment needs to be proven or disproven. So it needs to be a positive statement of a belief that experimentation sets out to prove or disprove. A hypothesis reflects a particular technical or scientific idea and is commonly expressed as a relationship between variable or technical features which can be proven or disproven. There's more examples then of looking at the hypothesis. Then we have some discussions on experiments. Experiments have to be conducted, of course. That's what this is all about. And they need to be recorded, the time people work on them and what the results were. And all this needs to be documented and filed as it's been undertaken, not tried to be written up a year later when the annual accounts have been prepared. What are the logical conclusions? And then we have got the discussion on core activities. What does that mean? So 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 are all looking at the core technologies. There are some activities that are excluded from research and development activities, and they're summarised there in item 17. Look at the supporting research and development activities. So as long as you've got core activities, you need one in every project, you can then have a range of supporting activities. If you haven't got the core activity, you can't claim the supporting R&D activities. We've got some excluded activities. Now, we then get to the discussion on generate new knowledge. The whole idea is to generate new knowledge. And could it have been determined? What the legislation says, there is a requirement for the outcome of the experiments to not have been known or determined in advance on the basis of current knowledge, information, or experiments. So it's the current knowledge at the date that your client's undertaking that research. This is why records are very important. And those records, if they're gleaned from the internet, need to be dated and filed. And if they're gleaned from a report from a university or a consultant, again, they need to be filed. Because there could have been some developments a few months later, but your client's already started to proceed on this experimentation. So that's the overview there of what the process is about in trying to identify the individual projects. We might have a look at the 052010. So I think oh no, that's so we've already looked at that paper. My apology. This is the paper I meant to click on then. 052014. We've broken these papers down into readable groups, if you like, and tried to isolate various components. So we ended up with 13 papers. So this one's looking at getting ready for a research and development project. Appointment of the team members, we've talked about that. Now, these have been prepared so you could send them to your clients and sit down and talk to them so they clearly understand that there are definitely reporting requirements and they have got to initiate the vast majority of this. I see your role has basically been an internal auditor, that you're going to check that they have prepared the records that are required, tick them off on the list so that you have a full record, but it's primarily your client's responsibility to maintain these records and undertake the R&D process in the type of manner that's discussed in this material. We recommend that a code be utilised, and after a while you'll get to have similar codes, but codes for the type of work being undertaken, which obviously will vary from client to client because they're going to have different types of projects. And some of these projects can be quite large, $3 or $4 million worth of expenditure in a 12-month period. I've worked on one of those and some others were very close to it. And you need to make sure the proper records are being kept. We discuss the need to keep appropriate records on expenditure. So here's a paper looking at supporting research and development expenditure. If you're starting off in giving advice on research and development right from scratch, I suggest you need to make sure that you've read all this material, and you're quite welcome to raise questions with us as to how we look at various treatments. So we've summarised activities which will not qualify as core research and development activities, but they may be supporting activities. So what I'm attempting to show you today is an indication that there is a significant amount of material that we have prepared to guide you through on this process, but you're the accountant guiding your client, and you have to be in a position to give them that advice. And in some of our training sessions, we do concentrate on this particular program to assist accountants to be able to advise your clients. What we have on the screen now then is the next flow chart, which was 051, getting ready. So we talked then about appointing a team, which is summarised in paper 052014. And this is where we're raising the question of employment agreements relating to the assignment of intellectual property to the company been signed by team members. Have confidentiality agreements been signed? And all of that information should be going to the research and development manager. He should be creating a file for this particular research and development project and making sure it is safeguarded, because it might be years before a query or a claim comes in against the company. It probably depends whether the intellectual property that's been developed becomes very valuable. So with contractors, it's very important to have work contracts and intellectual property agreements. Now, the preparation of those agreements is outside of my sphere, as I'm not a legal practitioner, and in most cases, neither are accountants. So I'd suggest that you make sure your client has a discussion with a commercial solicitor who would prepare the documentation that they require. Similar types of agreements need to be prepared for what the tax office call competent professionals. Now, these could be universities, they could be graduates who are offering consulting services. It's the same situation. Your client needs to be protecting their company. Records required. Details of the eligible expenditure, we refer back to this paper 052014, where the key information about eligible expenditure is summarised. We talk about the allocation of project codes and task codes. And that will make it easier for the record keeping by the team member of the work they've undertaken. If task codes can be determined for this project, and there might only be 10 of them, there might be 30 or 40 of them. And if they've got a number, they can just write down that number on their timesheets or their other record of their working hours and what they are charging to research and development, because all that cost has to be then factored together, because that's what the basis of the tax offset is, what the costs are. Work diary is very important. What's been achieved? How's it all going? The labour on costs can be reflected and claimed. How's that been prepared? Summary of the costs. Competent professional costs. The other costs, the sundry items. And then we get a consolidation of it all. So we're explaining here how all this works together. We've now moved on to the next flow chart, the planning, the research and development work project. The project coordinator sets individual projects. Someone in the company should be making sure there's been a review of the prior art searches originally undertaken to make sure that they look credible, that they've done enough work, because there'll be some very unhappy people, especially in the leadership team of the company, if all this work's done and it's found that there were very clear examples that prior art had already been registered at the time when the company had undertaken its research. So it's not a 5-minute exercise. It needs to be really tested. And just because something cannot be found under the original name your client's giving to this project, alternative names need to be thought up, discussions with professionals as to what other people may have called what they're proposing to undertake. If your client is wanting to claim overseas expenditure on research and development, they have to be able to identify the work that cannot be undertaken in Australia. And that needs to be submitted to the ATO and Oz Industry. If the company's gone ahead and incurred the expenditure overseas and the ATO say, no, we believe that work could have been undertaken in Australia, your client cannot claim that expenditure. So it's something that needs to be checked out. If your client, though, decides that the overseas expenditure is necessary, they have to then complete an overseas finding application. And it's got to be lodged by the 30th of June for the year that it relates to. Now, you can apply in advance, and that's what I'd be suggesting they do. We also have the option of applying for an advance finding application before any expenditure is undertaken in Australia. This is how a company can gain some certainty that the project that they've got in mind will be approved, and the tax office will and Oz Industry jointly will give approvals for up to 3 years in advance. And as long as the work is undertaken strictly in accordance with the submission that was made to the Australian Taxation Office, that expenditure will be allowed. So that's just giving you a bit more information on this journey. I think it's very important to also be talking to clients about protecting the intellectual property they're developing. Now, this is not covered by the Tax Act or by Oz Industry. It's none of their concern, but it should be your client's concern and your concern as the key advisor to your client. So we've discussed the what happens with the prior art search. We've discussed the contractor documentation so that we've made sure that the client's got confidentiality agreements and assignment of intellectual property. That there's a full list of the team members that are working, confirmation of the prior art searches. So it's a matter of someone sitting down and going back through all this and research into the scientific, technical, or professional literature, advice from experts, and then an alert to your client's patent attorney. And they might not have one. You might have to find them one, so that a file can be started. So the patent attorney is aware of what's happening and will be seeking information from time to time to determine whether a preliminary patent application should be lodged. And it's not just patents that come into play here, it's trademarks and design registrations. So the company will get some feedback and then decide whether they're going to proceed, because this all starts costing money. Patent applications to be lodged, and unfortunately all this has got to happen before really the company has got any firm indication that this could be a very worthwhile project for them. One of the real benefits of applying for a provisional patent is that there can then be discussions with other people, and the company has protection for that 12-month period from having sessions with people that might have an interest, and you can get interesting feedback from these sorts of discussions. And this may lead to some changes being made in the design that's been discussed with the patent attorney. If a decision's made not to proceed with a patent application, it doesn't necessarily mean that's the end. The decision might be to treat it as a trade secret item, like the Coca-Cola formula. But the company needs to then make sure there's very strict processes put in place internally, because they've decided they're not going to seek a patent because a patent requires disclosure. And a lot of people don't like that idea. So hopefully that gives you some information to think about relative to the protection of the intellectual property, which is hopefully an asset. On slides 054, we go into the systematic progression of work. So we've prepared these slides to guide you through what is meant by that process. Again, we go back to the beginning, the researches, the hypothesis, the rationale, the experiments conducted. So start, finish dates, the task, and that's where the task codes become very important. The details of experiments, what collaboration took place, who was involved. We've got forms there, you can fill in the details. So there's a complete data file being prepared on all aspects. The checklist for the systematic progression of work. Have they identified their hypothesis? Have they conducted experiments? Did they prove or disprove their hypothesis? Incidentally, it doesn't matter to the Australian Taxation Office or AusIndustry if the hypothesis is disproved. Some accountants think that if it's disproved, that you can't claim the R&D expenditure. Nothing could be further from the truth. As long as you have gone through this in this systematic way of documenting every step, if at the end of the process, the experimentation proved that it was not feasible, you document all that, and that can be submitted as part of the tax return. Because the government knows that there's a lot of going up dry gullies when it comes to research and development. And they're wanting to encourage Australian companies to undertake research and development. The onus is then on the company to make sure appropriate documentation is being kept. So we're talking about team meetings, governance statements, which is part of the submission, to say that all this work has been carried out in general accordance with what our system is saying there. And a report should go to the board of directors. Oh, we haven't got that form. Go back and find the other one I now want to go to is we have a form on feedstock adjustment. Feedstock adjustment is a complicated area when it comes to research and development. So it's where sales are being made when the project is still in the research and development phase. So we've got material there to explore how that will be calculated, because that's an adjustment that has to be made in the tax claim that's been submitted. We haven't got time now to go through it in detail, but we've got all the processes there for determining what adjustments are going to be made. So I'll just leave you with an overview once again of the material that's within the research and development. We've got these 13 papers, and then the 13 flowcharts, all which will help you to determine the process. We've got 46 separate forms there that all come together, and the whole system is guided by the documentation which we have given to you, the step-by-step process as outlined within those flowcharts. I hope that this has given you a good understanding of this entire process. And I just want to now go back to bring this up for you. The Black Friday promotion, which we have on as part of our BizAid campaign, is that there's a special offer which we are making. This is the Introduction to Research and Development as a standalone product. We started offering this for sale a few weeks ago at $300. We discounted it by 50% for the 2.5 weeks of the Black Friday promotion. So it's now $150 plus GST. You have access to that product package on research and development for 12 months with 24/7 access, and you may use it for as many clients as you like. So if you're ready to take action, you'd like to have the use of this product package to assist you with research and development, please go to our website, www.essbiztools.com.au. Click on packages and pricing, and then click on the individual products, Introduction to Research and Development. And then you can complete the subscription order form. Now, if you need more information, by all means, please contact me. Send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au, and we will respond to your questions, or you could telephone 0747241118. Thank you for your interest in the BizAid by ESS BizTools campaign. We look forward to hearing from you. Have a great day. Goodbye. And if you need any more information, please contact us. Goodbye.